What happens when one of the world's most unfiltered television hosts collides with one of the world's most fearless superstars? What happens when a casual comment on live television crosses a line that should never be crossed? And the entire studio realizes, too late, that Rihanna is not someone you provoke. Before we dive in, make sure you subscribe to Talk Flair and comment, and share, because what you're about to hear is the kind of celebrity showdown that doesn't just trend, it changes everything. It began on a Thursday morning, the kind of episode where the View's studio carried that restless buzz. The audience chattering, the crew rushing, the hosts gathered around the iconic table. Producers knew ratings would spike today. Rihanna wasn't just a guest. She was the guest, the kind whose presence was enough to electrify every corner of the set. When the doors opened and she stepped onto the stage, the room erupted. She wore confidence like a crown, gliding toward her seat in a sleek midnight black ensemble that seemed to absorb the studio lights. She smiled, waved, and took her seat, unaware that just 30 minutes later, the internet would be preparing to explode. Whoopi Goldberg leaned back in her chair, grinning as the applause died down. "Rihanna's in the house," she said, stretching the words out in that familiar voice that usually made the audience laugh. But something in her tone today carried a sharpness, a glint of mischief, maybe even ego. Sunny, Sara, Joy. All of them greeted Rihanna with the warmth expected from a panel that had hosted hundreds of celebrities. But Whoopi's eyes held that unpredictable energy that producers hated and viewers loved. The kind that made headlines. The interview started smoothly. They talked about Rihanna's upcoming project, her return to music, and even her new ventures in fashion and philanthropy. She spoke with grace, cracking jokes, charming the audience, completely unaware that a single sentence from Whoopi would soon change the air in the room. "So Riri," Whoopi began, swirling her pen between her fingers. "You've built this empire, music, makeup, fashion, everything. But let's be real for a second. People say you've gotten a little softer lately. Lost some of that fire." A hush fell, so sudden it was almost audible. The audience shifted in their seats. Rihanna's smile paused, not dropped, just paused like a tiny glitch in the energy. "What do you mean by softer?" she asked, her voice gentle but edged with curiosity. Whoopi shrugged. "I mean, you're a mom now, and that changes people. It takes the edge off. Makes them less hungry, less ambitious. Some folks think you're not as bold as before." Joy's eyes widened. Sunny shot a glance at the producers off camera. Sara stiffened. Everyone could feel it, a boundary being approached, then nudged, then crossed. Rihanna inhaled slowly. She didn't look angry. Not yet. But something sharpened behind her eyes. "Who said that?" "Oh, you know how it is," Whoopi replied with a dismissive wave. "People talk. Fans, critics. And personally, I kinda agree. You don't have the same bite. Not like the old Rihanna, the wild one, the rebellious one. Motherhood changed your vibe." The audience murmured. A few gasps. A tension heavy enough to slow time. Rihanna sat back, processing. She kept her expression controlled, poised, elegant. But the air around her started to shift, like the calm before a storm. "Let me understand this," she said softly. "You're saying becoming a mother made me weaker?" Whoopi lifted her chin, unfazed. "Not weaker. Just softer. It happens. It's natural." Rihanna let out a breath that carried years of battles, victories, reinventions. Everything she had fought for. She turned her head slightly, as if addressing more than just Whoopi. As if speaking to every viewer who had ever underestimated a woman because she'd grown, evolved, matured. "I don't like that," she said. Not loud, not theatrical, but powerful. The studio went still. "You don't?" Whoopi asked, leaning forward. "No," Rihanna replied, her voice like slow thunder. "Because you don't get to say that. Nobody does. You don't get to tell a woman that because she has a child, she loses her fire. That she stops being ambitious. That she stops being bold." Whoopi raised her brows, preparing to counter, but Rihanna continued, steady, poised, commanding. "Motherhood didn't soften me," she said. "It sharpened me. It made me more focused, more driven, more intentional. I'm not quieter. I'm louder in the places that matter." The audience began applauding, a wave of support that grew louder and louder. But Whoopi held up a hand, signaling them to stop. "Okay, but," she tried again. "No," Rihanna's voice cut through the room. "Don't ever say that again." The air snapped, the kind of moment when everyone feels the temperature drop, when even the cameras seem to freeze for a fraction of a second. Whoopi blinked, stunned. Not offended, stunned. It wasn't often someone shut her down so directly, so unapologetically, especially not on her own turf. You're taking it too seriously, Whoopi muttered, trying to laugh it off. It's just an observation. Rihanna's eyes didn't move, didn't soften, didn't blink. Well, your observation is disrespectful, she said. And it's tired. Women, especially mothers, get judged by different rules. And I'm tired of it. The studio audience clapped again, louder, more emotional, some even cheering. Rihanna wasn't yelling. She didn't need to. Her presence filled the room, pushing against the walls, against the cameras, against every casual stereotype thrown her way. Whoopi pursed her lips. Her posture shifted, shoulders stiffening, eyes narrowing. Her pride had been touched, and the tension began to thicken like smoke. You know I didn't mean it in a bad way, Whoopi said, voice deeper, less playful now. Don't make it sound like I attacked you. Rihanna leaned in slightly, her tone calm but devastatingly precise. You made it sound like motherhood diminished me. So yes, I'm going to correct you. The silence afterward was so complete that the faint hum of studio lights became audible. The audience stared wide-eyed. Even Joy seemed afraid to clear her throat. And for the first time since Rihanna entered the studio, Whoopi Goldberg had no immediate comeback. Something had cracked open, and everyone, the hosts, the audience, the crew, knew this was only the beginning. Because Rihanna wasn't done, and Whoopi wasn't backing down. The silence held like a stretched wire ready to snap. Rihanna's words still hung in the air, vibrating through the studio, settling into the audience, echoing between the cameras and the panelists who suddenly looked much smaller than before. Whoopi Goldberg exhaled, long and slow, leaning back in her chair as if to reclaim some invisible ground she felt slipping beneath her. Her expression was unreadable, part disbelief, part irritation, part challenge. So we're doing this, she said finally, her voice low, her tone shifting into something less playful and more territorial. We're having that conversation. Rihanna didn't move, didn't flinch. Her gaze was steady, a quiet flame that made the room feel warmer and colder at the same time. We're having the conversation you started, she replied. Joy tried to cut the tension with a nervous laugh. Ladies, let's breathe. Deep breaths. In through the nose. Joy, please. Whoopi snapped without taking her eyes off Rihanna. The audience gasped. Joy blinked, taken aback, sinking slightly into her seat. Rihanna's lip twitched, a micro-expression that suggested she'd just added another mental note to the list of lines being crossed on this stage. Sunny Hostin, always the calm tether, gently rested her hands on the table. Maybe we should reframe. No, Rihanna interrupted softly but firmly. Let's stay right here. She placed her palms lightly on the table, her nails glinting under the studio lights. You brought up motherhood as if it's a limitation, as if it dulls ambition. Where did you get that idea, Whoopi? Whoopi leaned forward now, elbows on the table, eyes locked on Rihanna like two heavyweights circling each other in the ring. It's not an idea, she said. It's an observation. People evolve. They change. And it's okay to acknowledge that. But you framed it as a loss, Rihanna countered. You said I lost my fire. That's not evolution. That's condescension. Whoopi's mouth tightened. You're taking it personally. It is personal. The audience exploded into applause. Whoopi lifted a hand, not to quiet them, but as if shielding herself from the weight of Rihanna's words. Look, I've been in this industry longer than you've been alive. I've seen stars rise, change, settle, soften. It's not an insult. It's life. Rihanna's eyebrow rose, slow and sharp. So now you're saying because you've been here longer, you get to define my journey? Whoopi's jaw clenched. I'm saying I know what I see. And I'm telling you you're wrong, Rihanna said, her voice smooth as glass but carrying the sting of truth. Motherhood didn't soften me. It strengthened me. And I'm not going to sit on national television and let you draw lines around who I am. The studio's energy shifted again, thicker, hotter, as though the ceiling lights were lowering themselves toward the table. Sara Haines cleared her throat, trying to wedge herself between two storms. Rihanna, maybe Whoopi was speaking to a public perception, not making a judgment. Rihanna turned her attention toward her, gentle but unwavering. Then she should have said that. Words matter. Sara nodded, pressing her lips together. She felt the pressure radiating from Whoopi, the heat from Rihanna, and the eyes of millions watching this moment in real time. Whoopi leaned forward suddenly, her tone sharpening. So what? I can't say anything critical? I can't mention any change? I can't have an opinion about your career. You can have an opinion, Rihanna said. But don't disguise a stereotype as an observation. Ooh, the audience murmured, rippling through the studio. Whoopi shook her head, almost laughing but not truly amused. You know what? This is why interviews these days get so stiff. Everyone's too sensitive. Too defensive. Rihanna leaned back slightly, but her presence didn't retreat. No, Whoopi. We're not too sensitive. People are just tired of being labeled. Tired of hearing the same tired assumptions about women, mothers, artists. She paused, letting every syllable settle like dust over a battlefield. And tired of people with platforms reinforcing them. That hit. Hard. You could feel it. Like a stone dropped into still water. Whoopi's face froze for a beat. Then her shoulders squared. Are you implying I'm part of the problem? She asked, her voice dangerously calm. Rihanna held her gaze. If the shoe fits. A sound rippled across the audience. Half gasp, half cheer, all electricity. Sunny muttered under her breath. Oh Lord. Joy reached for her mug as if needing something warm to hold on to. Whoopi's fingers tapped the table. Tap, tap, tap. A rhythm of rising frustration. You came here to talk about your music, your business, Whoopi said. But it seems like you came ready for a fight. Rihanna laughed softly, a dangerous, melodic laugh that echoed through the tense air. Whoopi, if you wanted a respectful conversation, you shouldn't have opened with a disrespectful statement. That struck deeper than anything before. Whoopi leaned forward again, eyes narrowing in warning. You're twisting my words. No, Rihanna replied. I'm exposing them. The audience erupted, applause, shouts, a few gasps. The energy was becoming uncontrollable, explosive, like the walls themselves were holding their breath. Rihanna continued, you could have asked about evolution, growth, change, but you chose to paint me as someone who has lost something. And when a woman hears that, especially a black woman in this industry, she knows exactly what you mean. A hush fell again, this time heavier, deeper. Whoopi's expression flickered, the first crack in her armor. Sunny whispered, here it goes. Rihanna leaned in slightly, her gaze unwavering. Do you think Beyoncé lost her fire when she became a mother? Do you think Serena did? Do you think any woman who gives life suddenly becomes less powerful? Whoopi opened her mouth, then closed it. No words came. Rihanna continued, her voice soft but devastating. Motherhood didn't dim my fire. It gave it purpose. And if you can't see that, maybe you need to adjust your perspective. The audience rose to their feet, clapping, cheering, whistling. The energy was volcanic. Whoopi looked around, momentarily overwhelmed by the force of the crowd. For the first time, she seemed unsettled, unsure, even shaken. She faced Rihanna again, voice low. I didn't come here to fight. But you did, Rihanna replied. And you started it. Whoopi exhaled sharply, frustration twisting her features. You're making me out to be the villain. Rihanna's voice dropped, calm, razor-sharp. No, Whoopi. You did that all by yourself. And at that moment, with the cameras rolling, the audience roaring, and the panel frozen, everyone realized something. This confrontation wasn't cooling down. The energy in the studio had shifted from tense to volatile, like a spark hovering inches above a gasoline-soaked floor. The audience sat on the very edge of their seats, barely breathing, afraid to blink in case they missed the next blow. Whoopi Goldberg stared across the table at Rihanna, her expression unmoving, but her pride simmering beneath the surface. She had weathered decades of controversy, of on-air clashes, of heated debates, but this felt different. Rihanna wasn't a politician or a pundit. She wasn't a guest who would fold under pressure or back down to preserve politeness. She was Rihanna, and she was standing her ground. The cameras zoomed in slowly, capturing the kind of close-up tension producers dream of and hosts dread. Whoopi inhaled, steadying her voice. Let me be clear, she said. I didn't call you weak. I didn't say you were less powerful. I said motherhood changes people. And in your case, I think it changed your edge. That's all. Rihanna tilted her head, the faintest hint of disbelief curving her mouth. You think that's all? It is all, Whoopi pressed. And if you can't accept any critique without turning it into an attack, then... Rihanna cut in quietly. This isn't critique. This is minimization. The audience oohed softly. Whoopi blinked. Excuse me? You heard me, Rihanna said. What you call critique, I call a tired narrative. One that has followed women for generations. One that reduces our evolution to a decline. Whoopi pushed her chair back just an inch, enough to signal the rising heat. Oh, so now I'm reducing women? Me. After everything I've stood for. Even the strongest people can slip into stereotypes, Rihanna said softly. Even you. The audience murmured again, half supportive, half shocked. Whoopi's eyes hardened. Well, maybe you're not used to hearing the truth. Rihanna's gaze didn't waver. Maybe you're not used to being challenged. The crowd reacted instantly, applause, whistles, a sudden crescendo of raw excitement. Sunny leaned toward Joy, whispering under her breath, "This is going to break the internet." Joy nodded, clutching her mug like it was an emotional lifeline. "This is going to break something." Whoopi lifted a hand, silencing the room with a single gesture. "Rihanna, I have been in this field for a very long time. I've interviewed artists, leaders, activists. I've seen the cycles, the hunger, the rise, the maturity. You're not exempt from that." Rihanna leaned forward, not aggressively, but with a powerful stillness that made the entire studio lean forward with her. "And what you call maturity, Whoopi," she said, voice low, "sounds a lot like you're telling me to shrink." Whoopi frowned. "Shrink? No. Evolve." Rihanna nodded slowly. "Then say evolve. Not soften. Not lose fire. Not become less ambitious. Words matter, remember?" Whoopi opened her mouth, but before she could speak, Rihanna continued, her voice carrying a depth that quieted even the rowdiest members of the audience. "You know what motherhood has done for me? It made my dreams sharper, my priorities clearer, my purpose deeper. I don't move less, I move smarter. I don't shout more, I speak intentionally. That's not losing fire. That's focusing it." The room burst into applause again. Whoopi waited, letting the noise settle, barely. Her face had grown tense, her jaw working, her fingers tapping again. "So now I'm the villain because I said you changed?" "Everybody changes." "Nobody said you're a villain," Rihanna replied. "You said that. Not me." But the implication hung between them, heavy, undeniable. "And what?" Whoopi challenged. "You want me to apologize? Is that what this is about?" Rihanna sat back, her posture impossibly poised. "This isn't about an apology. This is about accountability." The words hit the studio like a thud. Whoopi laughed, but it wasn't amusement. It was disbelief, the kind of laugh someone uses to restrain irritation. Accountability? For saying you've changed? For saying motherhood alters people? Rihanna, come on. Rihanna didn't blink. Accountability for reinforcing a stereotype that doesn't belong to you. For a moment, the two women stared at each other, a quiet war in their eyes. The entire room felt like a fuse burning toward an explosion. Sara, gently but nervously, leaned in. "Maybe we can pivot, talk about Rihanna's music, her upcoming." Whoopi raised a hand sharply. "No, no pivoting." Sara's voice died instantly. Joy muttered, "Lord have mercy." Whoopi turned back to Rihanna. "Let me tell you something. I've lived a long life. I've raised kids. I've worked through chaos. And I've had people tell me I changed too. So don't act like you're the only woman who hears that." Rihanna nodded. "I'm not the only one. That's exactly why we're having this conversation." The audience reacted again, applause, snapping fingers, murmurs of agreement. Rihanna leaned in again. "Women deserve better than being told they've lost their edge simply because their lives grow bigger. And if you, Whoopi, a woman with your influence, your history, reinforce that narrative, it's not just a comment. It's a message." Whoopi's eyes narrowed. "You're lecturing me now." "I'm speaking truth," Rihanna said. "If it feels like a lecture, maybe you should ask yourself why." The audience gasped, loud, collective, almost cinematic. Whoopi sat back in her chair, stunned, her face reddening ever so slightly. Sunny whispered, "Oh my God." Rihanna continued, her tone gentler now, but no less firm. "Whoopi, you have power. Real power. And with power comes responsibility. You know that better than anyone. So when you say something that tears women down, even unintentionally, it matters." Whoopi swallowed. Her defenses were slipping, though she fought to hold them upright. "And what do you want from me?" she asked quietly. "What exactly do you expect?" Rihanna held her gaze with deep, calm intensity. "I expect you not to belittle the strength of mothers. I expect you to choose better words. I expect you to do better. Just like we all should." The silence afterward was suffocating. Whoopi's nostrils flared. She crossed her arms tightly. "Well," she said, her voice icy, "maybe next time, you should tell the producers you only want softball questions." The audience booed, real, genuine boos that rolled through the studio like thunder. Rihanna inhaled deeply through her nose, and when she spoke, her voice was steady, clear, and devastating. "This wasn't a question," she said. "It was an insult dressed as insight." Whoopi's eyes widened. "Are you calling me disrespectful?" Rihanna didn't blink. "I already did." And for a moment, Just a breath. Whoopi Goldberg was speechless. The studio felt ready to erupt. Producers stood frozen in the wings. The floor manager didn't dare whisper instructions. Even the audience sat still, watching two titans collide with no signs of retreat. Then slowly, very slowly, Whoopi leaned forward again, her expression darkening, her voice dropping into a tone so quiet it sent chills up the walls. "You think this is over?" Rihanna whispered back, "No, Whoopi. I think this is just getting started." For a moment, the studio felt like it stopped breathing. The cameras captured everything. Every twitch, every inhale, every silent spark dancing between Rihanna and Whoopi Goldberg. The audience could feel it in their bones. Something irreversible had happened, and the explosion hadn't even peaked yet. Whoopi leaned forward, elbows pressing into the table, her face tightening with an emotion she rarely revealed on camera. Not anger exactly, but something rawer. Something laced with pride, frustration, and the sting of being challenged in a place where she usually held control. "You really think I meant to belittle you?" she asked, her voice strained. "After all the years I've fought against people judging women? Against people judging me?" Rihanna met her gaze with calm intensity. "I don't think you meant it, but intention doesn't erase impact." A murmur rippled through the audience, soft agreement, surprised admiration, a sense of watching truth sharpen itself into a blade. Whoopi didn't look away. "I've sat at this table for a long damn time," she said. "I've said things people didn't like. I've been wrong before, but I've always been honest. And I respect that," Rihanna said. "But honesty without awareness becomes harm." Whoopi's jaw tightened. She wasn't used to being the one taught, corrected, challenged so skillfully and publicly. And Rihanna wasn't doing it with aggression. She was doing it with clarity, with intention, with a steadiness that made the moment feel even heavier. Sunny shifted in her seat, hands clasped tightly. "Maybe," she said cautiously, "this is a moment we can learn from. All of us." Whoopi looked at her briefly, then back at Rihanna. "You really believe I see mothers as weaker?" Rihanna shook her head gently. "No, I believe you said something careless. And I believe you're strong enough to admit that." The audience clapped softly. Not the wild eruption from before, but something more emotional, more human. Whoopi inhaled slowly. "Look, I may have phrased it wrong. I may have said it too bluntly. But I wasn't trying to take anything away from you." "I know," Rihanna said. "That's why I corrected you. Because how you speak matters. Especially here. Especially with your influence." Whoopi's lips parted, not in defense, but in a slow, dawning realization. Then, just as the tension seemed to settle into something almost reflective, it shifted again. A voice from the audience, a woman in the front row, suddenly shouted, "Rihanna, we love you." The audience erupted into cheers. Rihanna turned briefly, offering a small, grateful smile. But when she turned back to Whoopi, the conversation had changed. The air felt different. Something in Whoopi's expression had hardened again. "You know what bothers me?" Whoopi said. "Not what you said. Not even how you said it. It's that the audience is only hearing one side." Rihanna's eyes narrowed a touch. "They're hearing the truth." "No," Whoopi said. "They're hearing your truth." Rihanna leaned in. "Then speak yours." And Whoopi did. "I've seen women disappear," she said. "I've seen them give everything up, their work, their passion, their identity, all because people expect them to choose. And seeing someone like you, someone with so much, slow down, it scared me. Not because I think motherhood weakens you, but because I've seen this industry swallow women whole when they try to balance both." This time, the audience didn't react. They listened. Rihanna's expression softened by a fraction, not enough to break her stance, but enough to show she was hearing the deeper layer beneath the words. "Whoopi," she said quietly, "I'm not disappearing. I'm evolving." Whoopi swallowed hard. "I know. I needed to hear you say it." Sunny gently touched Whoopi's arm. Joy's face softened. Sara exhaled. Rihanna's voice lowered, her tone no longer sharp but steady-rooted. "Women don't need to choose. That's the message we need. Not that motherhood softens ambition, but that ambition can grow in different ways." Whoopi nodded slowly. "Maybe you're right." Rihanna offered a faint smile. "Maybe we both are." For the first time since the confrontation began, the tension loosened, like a knot releasing. But the moment wasn't over, not yet. As the audience applauded warmly, Whoopi glanced at Rihanna, then spoke with a vulnerability rarely seen on live television. "If it came across as disrespect," she said, voice low but sincere, "then I apologize." The room erupted. Cheers, applause, even a few tears from audience members who had been clutching their hearts through the emotional roller coaster. Rihanna nodded graciously. Thank you. But then she leaned forward again, and the room grew quiet. But don't ever tell a woman, any woman, that she's lost her fire because she became a mother. Not on this show. Not anywhere. Whoopi nodded firmly, absorbing the weight of the words. Fair. The tension broke, not with laughter, but with something more grounded. Respect. The crew exhaled. The hosts relaxed. The audience began cheering again. Not the chaotic excitement from earlier, but something more meaningful. And then the segment ended, or at least the on-air part did. Because the aftermath, that was just beginning. The moment the show cut to commercial, the studio exploded. Audience members shouting Rihanna's name, others discussing the exchange with wide eyes. Producers rushed toward the table, whispering frantically. But Rihanna stood calm, poised, unshaken. She exchanged a brief nod with Sunny, a soft smile with Sara, a reassuring glance toward Joy. Whoopi stood too, and for a moment, they looked at each other in a way that felt almost reconciled. Not friends, not enemies. Two powerful women who had collided, clashed, challenged one another, and created a moment no one would forget. By the time Rihanna left the stage, the internet had already erupted. Clips of the confrontation spread across social media. TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, everywhere. Millions watched within minutes. Hashtags exploded. Hashtag Rihanna on the View. Hashtag Whoopi versus Rihanna. Hashtag Mothers Have Fire. Hashtag Respect Rihanna. People argued, debated, analyzed. Some defended Whoopi. Many championed Rihanna. But everyone agreed on one thing. This was historic. The kind of moment that didn't just trend, it resonated. It lit conversations everywhere about motherhood, ambition, stereotypes, and the words people use without thinking. And as Rihanna stepped into her SUV outside the studio, reporters shouting her name, fans screaming their support, she turned once toward the cameras and said softly, with a smile, "Women don't lose their fire. We just aim it." The clip went viral instantly. Now it's your turn. What do you think? Was Whoopi out of line? Was Rihanna right to call her out? Let me know in the comments. I want to hear your take. And don't forget to subscribe to Talk Flair for more explosive, dramatic celebrity moments and deep dive stories that keep you hooked from the first second to the last.